You can't wake up. I had to keep you awake long enough so when you finally slept, you'd never wake up again.
Damn it! You open this door, Krueger! What do you think I did? I didn't let your ass out! Open the fucking door!
Lie to me.
I didn't lie.
It's right here. Why would you lie to me? Stop lying to me.
I'm not lying to you. I am not lying to you. I'm not lying to you.
This won't hurt. One little bit. It's real. I'm real.
I'm just going to start this off with saying this discussion is going to get messy. I can feel it in the air. Okay, everyone ready? Let's do this. Sometimes the best is the best and nothing will ever compare. Hollywood has always been in the game of remaking past glory, be it big or small. In 1984, late great horror master Wes Craven entered the slasher subgenre in a way that no one saw coming and still can't grasp creative-wise. Freddy Krueger in the Dreamscape was one of the most innovative and creative things ever in horror. The franchise continued through numerous sequels trying to recapture that '84 fire. Sometimes it came close or hit the mark with entries like Dream Warriors or New Nightmare. We saw what Rob Zombie did with a Halloween remake in 2007 and Marcus Nispel for Friday the 13th in 2009. It was only a matter of time before the Trinity was completed. Entered director Samuel Baer, tasked with doing the impossible in remaking a Wes Craven staple. The question is, would viewers accept this dream project or see it as a literal remake nightmare that is as pale in comparison as the Nancy bathtub sequence? Let's get down to brass tacks. In this Why You Hate video, and by the way, I've done several episodes of films that sometimes divides the fans and causes a great discussion with people on both sides of the fence. Check them out in the Why You Hate playlist if you haven't already, or if you're in need of some fun and a good horror discussion, check them out again. It's not going to hurt, I promise.
Smart. Brains.
Also, if you would personally like to help me decide on films for new episodes and much more while supporting this channel, join our channel membership program by clicking the join button next to the subscribe button. It's a member perk for our movie fanatics level and above. You know you're a movie fanatic. We all are. So as I was saying, I'm going to go over reasons, and I have a bunch, of why fans have issues with A Nightmare on Elm Street from 2010, including multiple things that I know will be a strong debate in this community for the lovers of this film and the detractors of it. I will also attempt, if at all possible, to show how some issues might not hold as much weight as they seem. Also, I'll touch upon some history and behind-the-scenes info to give a snapshot of this film's journey. So get your walls inspected for clawed monsters, don't get grounded by your vigilante justice parents, try not to fall asleep in class, don't drown at swim practice, and watch out for sticky, bloody floors. Here are the reasons why you hate A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010. Number 1. Darker story. Here's where we separate the apples from the oranges. The Elm Street franchise has one of the most interesting franchise trajectories in all of horror. The original film absolutely changed the genre and catapulted slashers in a fresh direction, with endless and amazing competition, most notably our favorite hockey mask-wearing homie from New Jersey and all of those fantastic characters, including the final girls. Freddy Krueger as a character leaned into his popularity and of course the infinite charm of Robert Englund. Freddy's very essence separated himself from the pack and became a cultural icon. I mean, let's be real, he was on MTV for God's sake. This ascension to fame and notoriety didn't come without its sacrifices, most notably the tone of the movies. As the franchise grew to popular heights, more was expected from Krueger to entertain as well as be effective as a scary villain. Those two particular factors slowly grew further and further apart as Dream Warrior's Freddy started to give way to what he eventually became in Freddy's Dead. I mean, come on, he was in a video game.
And you blew it! You blew it!
Let's be real, you thought we forgot. But we didn't. The 2010 remake chose to do what fans said they wanted for years, and that was to give us a scary and darker portrayal of Freddy.
Elevated it so much, and what kept it around was the creation of a villain that you can't run from. So many of the other horror movies, horror franchises gave you something that was completely grounded in reality, where, you know, as long as you had your own legs and, you know, a good pair of shoes, you could haul ass.
And that's exactly what Samuel Bayer and crew did. Here's the question though, did they go too far? The slippery slope was obviously difficult to navigate.
Here. We're fine. It is not in the file. It is not. You son of a bitch!
In the original Elm Street, Freddy was a child murderer that was killed by the angry mob of parents exacting their revenge. Robert always straddled the line of evil and downright disgusting effectively. Many fans did not get fully on board with Krueger being portrayed as a molester. In this remake, it truly did get very dark as a story. I understand what the filmmakers were trying to do, and I actually think that their choice, although not executed well, was in essence right. Here's where I think they lost some people. Making Freddy much more serious and disgusting unbalanced the film because the other characters, pretty much everyone except for Kyle Gallner's Quentin, were not those that you truly get behind. Nancy was so muted, Chris got killed too early, and so on. Who balances out the darker version of Freddy? Who has the charm that pulls you into them? I think that is why the darker story was ineffective. Who are we rooting for? Who do we put our money on? That question has pretty much remained unanswered for all of these years since the film came out. Number 2, direction. There is a charm and an excellence to Wes Craven films. He really was a great filmmaker. A Nightmare on Elm Street 1984 was a true labor of love for him. Having the concept be partially inspired by the real world and then developing it further, it is safe to say this film was a part of his soul. I think this is why a lot of remakes can suffer, because there wasn't as much blood, sweat, and tears put into the creation and development of it. I mean, Wes Craven shopped around that idea for a few years before New Line Cinema came in and saved the day. Copying what has already been done, or just changing up a few aspects, is obviously easier. To be fair, easier doesn't always mean that the end result can't be good or even worthy. This is what makes the discussion of remakes so interesting, in my opinion. We've seen countless examples of films that had good or great remakes. Some of those remakes are absolute classics. You know what I'm talking about.
I'm afraid!
Don't be afraid!
No. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Others failed to deliver the heights that was once achieved by the original. Let's go deeper into this story. Samuel Bayer, right or wrong, was the director chosen to tackle this mountain of a project.
Nightmare on Elm Street is one of those interesting things that is just so infamous that I think for a lot of kids, it's almost like a rite of adolescence or something.
Producer Brad Fuller once explained that they had tried to get him to direct a movie for 3 different horror franchises. What? Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the Amityville Horror. Samuel Bayer just wouldn't budge and initially said no to A Nightmare on Elm Street also. He relented after receiving a long email from producer Michael Bay, who said that doing the film would really open up his career opportunities. Stop. I realize, and you should too, that filmmaking is a business, but come on, Michael Bay. Give the guy better inspirational fuel than that. Do better, Michael Bay. Do better. Oh, and following the extreme backlash to this movie, Bayer has not directed another feature film as of 2023.
Your youth is in your legs.
There's a part of me that feels bad for him. He literally got on a runaway freight train that he couldn't control, and it ultimately derailed. There are several key points to consider when discussing the Nightmare remake and its troubled history. The script went through roughly 15 drafts. and the final film is a hybrid of 4 of them. And interestingly enough, the inspiration came from not just the '84 classic, but from the hero we don't deserve, but the one that we need. That's right, The Dark Knight. Being that it was such a massively successful film when it came out in 2008, a lot of filmmakers looked to the movie for inspiration. The Dark Knight was not only successful financially, but the superhero flick also got critical praise and took home 2 Academy Awards. When talking with Fangoria, Bayer admitted that The Dark Knight heavily influenced how they approached A Nightmare on Elm Street. Bayer even went as far as to say, quote, "I told all of my cast and crew that we must do with Freddy what Christopher Nolan did with Batman. I'm trying to make a dark and serious film, and I hope I'm achieving that. One of the most extraordinary aspects of Dark Knight is the way it integrates Batman into a believable world, and I want to do just the same with Freddy," end quote. Now, I think that that's an odd bridge to make, in my opinion. Freddy Krueger and Batman. Well, when in Rome.
Inconceivable!
The remake tried to get back to Freddy's horror roots, true, and it's not a bad idea. We know exactly where the franchise started to go after A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, straight off of a cliff to Comedy Central. You prepare to get down to the brass tacks with Krueger, but the filmmakers didn't even bother to contact Craven for input.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
When talking with IGN, Wes Craven commented, "I don't even know who's doing it, and I'm not interested. It's actually really painful to think about it. It's the film of mine that I probably love the most."
You know, when I die, it'll be, the obituary probably best known for inventing Freddy Krueger. It'll be something like that. That'll summarize my entire career. And I think for Robert, it's the man who played Freddy Krueger. No matter what else you do in life, it's just one of those things. The film has its way with you.
I'm just at a total loss that you don't contact Wes Craven for guidance. No input, no inspiration, no respect, no creative fire, no trust. Liar. Producer Brad Fuller has stated that while the film was a financial success, the backlash from fans, critics, and industry professionals alike was so great that the phones at Platinum Dunes didn't ring for 2 years. No shit. They would not make another film until The Purge in 2013. He admits that this film was handled poorly and a step back for the company, and it was decided that this would be their last horror remake. A sequel to this film was planned, which would have focused on Krueger going after the people who had burned him alive. The opening sequence of the sequel would have expanded on the flashback to when Krueger died, which would reveal that he was taken to the hospital, where he would have succumbed to his wounds. What could have been, but evaporated. I saw the Nightmare remake in the theater, and it wasn't a bad theater experience. I just think a lot of people weren't exactly sure of how they felt about it. There was a sense of something being missing. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Of the Trinity's remakes, this one might have been the one I wrestled with the most. What did I just watch? What did they do? Am I truly in a nightmare? Oh, but hold on, folks. I've got more issues for us to cover. Number 3, CGI and copying. Probably one of the most discussed aspects of the film that fans, including me, have issues with. When you decide to add CGI to a project that is redoing something that had awesome practical effects, you are truly heading down a troubled road. I'm looking at you, The Thing 2011. Check out my episode on it for the full story. Nightmare 84 was shot way before CGI was even a thing, and miraculously, even with a small budget, they were able to do so many great things effects-wise. Less is more sometimes, folks. I mean, who in their right mind recreates the Nancy Wall scene like this? Look at it. Tell us what you think about it, George C.
We're fine. It is not in the file. It is not. You son of a bitch!
These are some fourth-rate PlayStation 2 looking effects from mom and pop stores that ruins the moment. Nowhere near as effective or believable compared to 1984. The 2010 monster looks like he ate a bunch of graham crackers and started to lunge out towards Nancy, hoping that she can give him a few more just for a fix.
Bullshit!
It just looks horrible in my opinion. The bathtub scene is legendary in A Nightmare on Elm Street, but it's also lukewarm, pun intended, in the remake. Although 2010 gives us the snow-filled sequence as Nancy is asleep, it really didn't go anywhere. It didn't have much impact. Yes, she gets face-to-face, maybe too much face, with Freddy, but then it's just fine when Quentin calls her phone, which wakes her up out of the bathtub. It could have really gone into a more interesting nightmare sequence. The Chris kill is even more complicated to talk about. Multiple reasons why that is. I'm going to go over it. First of all, the Tina kill in '84 was and still is a fantastic death scene. Also a great nightmare scene, and it's also a great Freddy Krueger introduction scene. You get where I'm going with this. Chris is played wonderfully by Katie Cassidy. And back up for a second, why not just call her Tina? I mean, that's who she is in this remake, right? What's up with all the name differences? Quentin instead of Glenn, Nancy Holbrook instead of Nancy Thompson. What are we doing? What's the purpose of not using the original names? It's freaking crazy. I mean, they were probably going to change Freddy's name to Marty Halston, but decided that that would be going too far. Okay, back on track here. Sorry that this name shit is triggering me, but
It is not in the file. It is not.
the Christina death scene is okay, but again, it lacked the intensity and charm that it could have had. Chris is thrown around in a really weird way. It just looked weird. In 1984, Tina was crawling on the wall on the ceiling, and that was so much more surreal. Like I was believing that shit was happening because of how good it looked. And of course, the performance by Amanda Weiss. When she reached out to Rod, it gives more emotion before Freddy kills her. In 2010, yeah, the claw rip looks good and much better than 1984, but it's still 1,000 times more empty. Again, people, story and character delivery trumps technical advancement. Number 4, Nancy. Nancy Thompson is a classical final girl, perhaps the quintessential final girl. Heather Langenkamp provided a smart, everyday realness to this character. She easily stands toe-to-toe with other legendary final girls such as Laurie Strode and Sidney Prescott. Rooney Mara's portrayal of Nancy is definitely a sticking point for many who've seen this movie. She truly sleepwalks through 75% of the runtime. There's no real connection you get to build with her because of how she performs and how the character is written. It's a shame because Mara has shown great talent in movies like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Well, there's a reason for this Nancy issue, and unfortunately, it starts with Rooney Mara herself. She didn't want the role. She wasn't fully invested in it. She has been quite vocal about the film in recent years.
I did a Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which was not a great experience making it. I have to be careful what I say and how I talk about it, but it wasn't the best experience making it. And I kind of got to this place of that I still live in of I don't want to act unless I'm doing stuff that I feel like I have to do. So I kind of, after making that film, decided, okay, well, I'm just not going to act anymore unless it's something that I feel that way about.
Mara also said she didn't really want the role when she auditioned, but she knew afterward that she had gotten the part. This is what frustration feels like. You have an actress in a lead role, maybe the most important role, or at least close to as important to Freddy himself, and she isn't interested in it. This has to fall on the direction as well. You can tell that she is ham and egging it through this movie, and Samuel Bayer should have done something to fix that. I'm just saying. The third act is where you finally start to see some good things in her character and performance, but the damage has already been done. Number 5, not Robert Englund. Okay, Robert Englund didn't play Freddy Krueger in this.
What is this shit?
Calm down, Clarence. In the history of film, there are those actors that are tied to a character so much so that the audience cannot accept anyone else in that role. We're talking about Sean Connery as James Bond, Sylvester Stallone as Rocky, Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, Anthony Hopkins as Dr. Hannibal Lecter, Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkes, and Robert Englund is Freddy Krueger. He made the character what it is through and through. There's no denying it. Enter Jackie Earle Haley, tasked with wearing the fedora and glove that only Robert wore for numerous years in films.
You son of a bitch!
Wait a sec, George C. Haley is a very capable actor who has shown his craft throughout the years, but let's back up and set the stage, shall we? Originally, Billy Bob Thornton and Steve Buscemi were considered to play Freddy Krueger. Director Samuel Baer began pursuing Jackie Earle Haley to play Freddy after he viewed the screen test he did for the movie Watchmen in 2009.
I'm scared from the start. None of this would have happened.
Stating, "It blew my mind." There's no doubt that Haley killed it as Rorschach. The character was easily a standout in a movie, as he is in the graphic novel, to be fair. By the way, the graphic novel is a treasured possession of mine, such a good read. If you haven't checked it out, you really should. Haley's presence was magnetic, and his line delivery was outstanding. When it was revealed he would be playing Freddy, I was excited and extremely nervous. You have to understand, I grew up on Robert Englund. He is a true living legend in horror. Could anyone else step into his shoes? Jackie Earle Haley was initially apprehensive about playing Freddy, as he should have been. He was intimidated by playing a character that he felt was really owned by another actor. However, the idea of playing Freddy excited him so much that he decided to accept the role.
This was kind of a cool process of getting in here and trying to figure out how to make Freddy my own, but yet, not get so far away from what Robert did. Robert did like this amazing job with Freddy over the years. He's made him who he is, this iconic, malevolent boogeyman.
As I go deeper into this controversial casting, a quick reminder, if you haven't hit the like button for our content, please do. If you're not subscribed to the Night Watch Zone, this is the time to do it. Do it and become part of this fantastic movie community where you'll never love and talk about movies the same. Okay, let's continue this. Jackie was game to accept the great challenge, and I think he did a great job as Freddy. He was easily the best thing in the movie. The way this Freddy was written leaned into Haley's strengths with his ability to invoke a quiet intensity, always ready to explode. All of this worked well, but the other difference of this Freddy was his design.
Looks more like an actual burn victim, but at the same time too, they kind of put in a little undertones of boogeyman.
Everyone decided that we were going to go after the idea that he would look like a real burn victim. So we hired Andrew Clement, who's amazing.
The makeup team wanted to make Freddy look more like an actual burn victim than he had been in previous movies, and the crew had many reference photos of actual victims, which detailed how white the skin would appear after healing. They also did not want the audience to turn away in disgust whenever Freddy appeared on screen, so they opted to take away some of the realism. A shout out and credit to the excellent work. The same animators who did the CGI work for Harvey Dent, Two-Face in The Dark Knight, were brought in to do the CGI work for Freddy's face. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't a huge fan of the new look. I get what they were going for and understand it, but I don't think it worked as well as Freddy designs from the earlier films. Except for Nightmare 5 and Freddy's Dead, those were not good at all. They were
bullshit!
Good intentions, but man, my brother was right. Sometimes Freddy was looking like a weird hairless cat. That cat face. To give credit though, I really loved when he would scrape his claws and the sparks came out. Some really cool visuals, just saying. As you can see, it's a back and forth game with this movie. Number 6, the finale. For a while, the film entertains the notion that Freddy Krueger may have been innocent, but he is eventually revealed to be guilty of child abuse. According to screenwriter Eric Hesserer, this was already in the original screenplay before he was asked to rewrite it, and the studio kept it in as they simply wanted to remake the original but make it scarier. A true highlight of the film is the pharmacy nightmare scene. Taking the genius idea of micronaps and installing it knee-deep into a nightmare was so freaking awesome. By the way, the micronaps idea wasn't as fully used as it should have been. They could have done more with it. It was very interesting. Seeing Nancy switch from reality to nightmare and Freddy attacking her worked very well. This led into the finale, which has its ups and downs. Quentin and Nancy face off against Freddy, some cool moments, a few lackluster jump scares, and a creepy basement lair for Freddy's disgusting acts. Mara was at her best in the third act, finally getting near believable final girl levels. Speaking of which, isn't it interesting how her sister, Kate Mara, who's a decent actress as well, was also in a divisive remake. You remember Fant Four Stick? Or I should say the Fantastic Four, right? Maybe not. She was pretty good as Sue Storm, but the film also failed with changing up the mythology. 2 sisters, 2 remakes, 2 headaches. Nancy and Quentin make their way to their old childhood school, and yeah, some good stuff, some bad stuff. We get the tables turned back on us when it's revealed that Freddy was not innocent. He is the undisputed villain of the story, and we knew it.
Taste the film! Don't forget that! Never forget that!
The whole hidden layer scene was just disgusting. Nancy goes into the dream world to bring Freddy out, again a take on the original, not very creative at all, and it just didn't have the same punch. Quentin faces Freddy and gets severely injured. Nancy saves him, deals with some cringy jump scares, and then the bloody floor into the bedroom, which was an homage to Johnny Depp's death scene. It looked pretty cool, I'll give them credit for that. You're in My World, Bitch was, well, Monica Keena did it better. The stinger at the end was a definite improvement over 84. Gone is the blow-up doll of Marge. I know a good friend of mine is probably waiting for me to say that. You're welcome, Eric. Overall, a decent finale, but a lot of bumps in the road. The film peaked at the pharmacy, if I'm being honest. At the end of the day, the Elm Street remake got horror fans in an uproar and thrown around like Chris and her nightmare, and we as fans must deal with it in our own way. You have to ask yourself, was A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010 a good remake? Does it deserve the hate that it gets? That's a question only you can answer. As always, this video is not here to make you love A Nightmare on Elm Street or to hate it. It's simply a discussion to highlight the history and aspects of it, good or bad, with you, the viewer. So what do you think? Are you a fan of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010? If so, tell us why. If not, let's discuss why you hate A Nightmare on Elm Street. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.
I'm your boyfriend now.